was running laps around my legs, and I would see face after face light up. It didn't take much for us to feel welcome. Chris had a cousin in town that introduced him to all kinds of friends. Before I knew it, he was off playing pool after work or going magnet fishing. I wasn't mad at him going out. He does his fair share of work around the house and with the kids. I think I was mostly frustrated about how easy he made friends. He would just have to cheer for the Vikings and somebody would hand him a beer. For me, it was a bit more complicated. I had a part-time job at the DMV, but people didn't really come there to socialize. And then I met Mallory. Mallory, or Mal, lived 4 houses down. I met her one day when I got home from work. She had just rung the doorbell and wasn't expecting somebody to pull up the driveway behind her. She was short, a bit round, and had a braid that reached halfway down her back. She had this smile where she didn't just move her mouth. Her entire face scrunched up. It's like she could smile with her whole body. "Hey, neighbor," she called out, waving at me. "Heard some wild rumors about another mom moving in." "Oh, I'm afraid it's all true." I shook her hand and she helped me with my groceries. She had 3 kids of her own and was a stay-at-home mom. Her husband worked at the local school, so there was a good chance that he would have to educate my boys someday. We ended up spending a lot of the day together talking about the neighborhood, our kids, and the careers that we had stepped away from. She had worked in marketing for a brewery, mostly doing graphic design. She still did some as a work-from-home kind of deal, but it was mostly a side gig. She couldn't believe that I had the time to hold down a proper job, but a lot of folks were struggling to make ends meet. Every bit helps. "I think the worst of it is the boredom," she confided in me. "I get bored out of my mind. The same walls, the same sounds, same people. Sometimes I wish the old bag across the street would go belly up, just so that I could say hi to the folks coming to pick her up." "Oh, you're terrible," I laughed. "It's really that bad?" "Yes, by God, yes. Let this be a lesson. Get out of the house. A job, a hobby, a lover, whatever you gotta do. Don't let yourself get cabin fever. I'm guessing grocery runs ain't doing it for you." "You're kidding me," she laughed. "I space my shopping out so I can get a little every day. Whatever gets me to stretch my legs." "No offense, but I hope I never get like that." "Oh, I hope so too. Now." She offered me her hand and a sincere look. "Let's be best friends so I can live vicariously through you." "Deal." And we shook on it. We tried to keep a straight face and neither of us let go until we burst out laughing. I had finally made a friend. Mal and I got along surprisingly well. My oldest son was about the same age as her youngest, and the 2 of them became best friends overnight. Within a couple of weeks, we had shared family dinners, sleepovers, and water balloon fights in the backyard. I got to meet Mal's husband, Ali, a nice enough fellow. Not quite the kind of guy my Chris hangs around with, but pleasant enough to be around. A bit pretentious, perhaps. One night, the whole family was invited over. Mal and Ali wanted to host a proper dinner party. They had set up this huge projector screen in the living room with a bunch of party games for the kids. It was an instant hit. Mal made her own spaghetti and meatballs, fancy enough to raise an eyebrow, and good enough to get the kids on board. While they played, Chris and Ali spent time in the yard, discussing God knows what. As Mal and I finally got a chance to talk, we settled down with a glass of wine. "You know, there are things going on around town," she mumbled. "You into true crime?" "I watched Making a Murderer," I said with an honest shrug. Not really my thing." "Well, what about scary stuff? Hauntings, possessions, ghost hunters?" "I mean, for a laugh, yeah." "You don't believe it?" I don't know, I said, giving her a smile. I don't have time to think about that. So you can honestly say you've never seen anything you can't explain? I mean, I both could and couldn't. We all have a couple of stories that we can't make sense of. A shadow outside the window, a strange sound being carried by the wind, a sunflower that turned blue when you picked it up, a truck driving past with nobody in the driver's seat. As the kids' sugar crashed and the house quieted into a whisper, Mal and I ended up in the yard finishing our third glass of white wine, talking in hushed voices. Chris had taken our kids home to sleep, while Ollie was making sure the others were getting ready for bed. And there's this one thing that I keep hearing about, Mal mumbled, but it's not a joke. You can't think of it like that. Promise. Sure, yeah. It's the fog, she said, pointing at me knowingly. There's something dangerous in the fog. What, like Bigfoot? Not a joke, she said, poking me on the cheek. This isn't just me telling you. There really is something in the fog. What do you mean? The fog here gets so thick in the morning that sometimes that people get lost, right? Most of the older folks are drunks, but sometimes people just disappear. Well, that usually happens when you can't see anything. All right, just do this one thing. Look up what happened on this street, July 18th, 6 years ago. Google it. You'll see what I mean. I wasn't expecting to go home with homework that night, but Mal made me promise. I have to admit, it was a bit exciting. It felt like I was playing detective, getting to the bottom of some mystery swept under the rug. I figured that was sort of the point. And before I went to bed that night, I looked up the article. It was easy enough to find. There weren't many articles written about anything even remotely near the street. It was an article about a woman going missing on the morning of July 18th, at the height of a nasty fog coming in from the east. What surprised me was the missing person herself. A young woman in her early 20s who went the same route every morning. Not any of the old folks or some random drunk. She was a runner. There were no witnesses who had seen her out and about that morning, but there were plenty who had seen and heard something else. One anonymous witness had described, there was someone standing in the field, and they just kept screaming like their life depended on it. You think it was her, the missing woman. It wasn't a woman's voice, not a man's voice either, not I don't know. It sounded like the fog's voice. The article ended with a hand-drawn picture of what looked like a person walking through the fields with a trail of tendrils lagging behind. The text at the bottom read, Artist's Rendition. Over the next couple of days, Mal and I texted back and forth about this. I kept asking her questions, like who the missing person was, and what people knew about what had happened. She was surprisingly honest about it. The main theory was that she had been attacked by one of her exes. After all, a lot of people knew about her morning jog. It wouldn't be that hard to set up an ambush. Others weren't so sure. There had been other instances where people had gone missing in the fog. There was one article about a car being left wide open on the road with nobody in it. The driver was presumed missing, and they had opened a tip line for the public. Mal explained that she knew one of the guys working that tip line, and more than one person had called in about, quote unquote, a strange man in the fog. And there were only a couple of articles spanning 10 years, but they were consistent. People going missing, and witnesses talking about something moving in the fog. Mal explained that there were a couple of people from around town who kept an ear to the ground and shared interesting tips and sights. It was a sort of impromptu digital neighborhood watch, but with so little going on, they mostly devolved into sharing memes and rumors. I was invited. I wasn't sure about whether to accept or not, but I must admit I was curious, and they had a lot to say. There were about half a dozen people posting regularly. There was Mal, of course, and 2 retired women who lived on the other side of town. There was a younger girl who worked as a farmhand, and what looked like the town's only 2 openly gay men in their 50s. It didn't take long to find the posts about the so-called fogmen. While there had only been a couple of articles, there were several rumors of the would-be fogmen. There were sightings and, by the looks of it, even a couple of pictures. Most of them were just pictures of foggy fields, but if you looked closely enough, you could imagine seeing something out there. Little black bumps in the distance. Could be a bush, could be a person. They really do scream, one of the commenters had posted, but not like how people scream. It's something different. A couple of days later, when I had a moment to myself, I gave Mal a call. We ended up talking for well over an hour. At some point, we drifted on the topic of the fogmen. Some people really believe in this stuff, don't they? I asked. Well, yeah, don't you? It's just stories and blurry pictures. It's hard to believe in that. A lot of things are just stories and blurry pictures. Don't mean they don't happen. I mean, it's kind of spooky. But come on, monsters in the fog? Not monsters, fogmen. Sure, that. Look, all I'm saying is, if you see something, say something. We'll see something like what? Oh, come on. She laughed, exasperated. Just keep an eye out when the fog rolls in. It was early morning in late July when I saw the fog for the first time. I was on my way to work, but it was hard to see the road. The fog got so thick that I could barely see what was right in front of me. After almost missing a turn, I decided to slow to a crawl. There's this big field on the right-hand side when I drive to work. You can usually see for miles, but now I couldn't even see the edge of the road. Despite crawling along, I managed to dip the front wheel off the side and something popped. I slammed my foot on the brake and went out to check. Yeah, a flat tire. Great. I didn't have a jack, so I couldn't fix the thing myself. I called Chris and I asked him to come help me. He didn't mind. If anything, I think it boosted his ego a little bit. While I waited, I decided to humor Mal. I took out my phone and scanned the fog for anything that looked even remotely human, hoping I could get a pole or something at a good angle. While I didn't see anything, I got this weird sensation in my chest, like something growing cold inside me. A creeping pain reaching into my lungs, and as I looked up from my phone, I realized that while I wasn't seeing anything, I was definitely hearing something. Something in the field and making a kind of sound that I had never heard before. Something raspy and shrill, like the vibrating echo of a distant groan. And by the time that Chris got there, the fog had cleared up. There was nothing in that field. If there had been, I would have seen it. As I said, it was empty for miles. I had managed to record a video, but it didn't pick up on that sound. I sent it to Mal anyway, hoping that she might be able to get something out of it. She didn't, but she was ecstatic about the prospect of me taking the infamous fogmen a little more seriously. and while I was, her enthusiasm was a bit off-putting. She had the energy of somebody waiting for an adventure to drop in her lap, and I wasn't feeling it. What I had heard out there wasn't an adventure. It was danger. I didn't like it. Despite that, Mal was happy to share what I had sent her in our social media group. All of a sudden, my experience wasn't just a conversation between friends. It became an open forum. She shared the video and forwarded what I had said. It was a bit of an overreach, but I wasn't about to get mad about it. She meant well, and she was just excited. That's a good problem to have. That's where they found the car. The farmhand wrote as a comment on my video. Anyone got Harriet's socials? She lives nearby, maybe she saw something. Oh, Harriet's down in Florida to see her sister. Somebody responded. Won't see her for weeks. New girl, did you hear anything? Like really hear it? And they were waiting for my reply. I wrote one, edited, rewrote, and then just canceled the whole post. After a back and forth with myself, I took the bull by the horn. I had to be honest, not only with them but myself. Yeah, I wrote. I definitely heard something. Over the next few days, I was glued to my phone. Whenever I had a moment to myself, I was talking to the Fog Watch, our unofficial group name. The more we talked, the more I recognized myself in what they were saying. The sound that wasn't really a scream, but it sort of reminded me of one. Something in the fog, only to disappear along with it. The big thing now was to see if anybody was missing. Someone always went missing when the fogmen rolled around. The following Friday night, as I was about to go to bed, I started getting notifications on my phone. And when I read them, my hand started shaking. I rushed into the kitchen to show Chris, but he was barely paying attention. There was an old man missing. Last they had seen him, he had parked outside of a gas station, about a 10-minute walk from where I had stopped that morning. The Fog Watch went into a frenzy. They were already coming up with theories about the origins of the thing out there. They were talking about weaknesses and strengths, ways to defend yourself, and getting equipment to capture it on film. Meanwhile, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. For all the excitement, and if you looked past the giddiness, there really was someone missing, and that person had gone missing minutes from where I had stopped my car. Fogmen or not, that was terrifying. As July crawled into August, the foggy mornings grew more common but less dense. You could sometimes see the fog rolling in over the fields, and I could see it just fine, and there was never any noise. Not that I didn't stop to listen. I would stop to film it every time I saw it, just in case I caught something. Sometimes I would pull over to the side of the road with the kids still in the car, asking them to wait a minute while Mom filmed the fog. They didn't mind, they thought that it was cool. They would stop to look as well, mistaking the occasional cow for a monster heading our way. While I never caught anything on video or felt anything similar to like I had that one morning, I could see why people got so into it. The area had a lot of open spaces, and the fog rolling in was straight out of a gothic horror novel. This white blanket swallowing up the green and turning the houses dark along the way. No wonder people looked for monsters. The countryside was practically built for hiding things in plain sight. But life rolled on, and the Fog Watch got distracted by the next shiny thing. Rumors about somebody poisoning the neighborhood cats and rumors about unruly teenagers busting up mailboxes. Mal's kids and my oldest got along great. They had a couple of sleepovers every now and then, staying up late and playing games. Ollie was a trooper. He loved making up things for them to do. Anything to keep them from begging for more screen time. One morning when I was going to pick up my boy, I stopped. It was just a couple of steps out the front door, but I couldn't help myself. Something made me stop, and I didn't even know why. I clutched a hand over my chest and got back in the house, peering out the window. I was cold, and I could see my breath on the glass. I could feel the fog rolling in. Not the usual fog, the unusual one. I called Mal. "It's right here," I said. "Look outside." "Aren't you coming to pick your boy up? Just look." I could hear laughter and little feet pitter-pattering in the background as she moved closer to one of the windows. I could almost guess which one, but she was just a little too far down the street for me to tell. "It's thicker," I continued, "like when I was out by the fields." "Oh, it doesn't look that bad." "Just wait a minute." "All right, we'll come to you." "No." I don't know why I let out that no as hard as I did, but something inside me was screaming for me to keep my kids indoors. I could feel my heart beating through my chest. "Are you okay?" Mel asked. "You were the one who didn't like this stuff, remember?" "I know, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong, but I don't like it. Can you please just keep them inside a little longer?" We sat there, keeping the line open as we sat by the windows. Me at my place and her just down the street. The kids could feel that something in the air was different. They grew quiet and concerned. It didn't matter that we said that everything was fine. They could tell that it wasn't. Once the fog had engulfed our street, I couldn't even see my car in the driveway. "You can't tell me this is normal," I said. "It's less like fog and more like a cloud." "Yeah," Mal agreed. "I can't even see the chairs in the yard." "Do you hear anything? Anything at all?" "Oh, just somebody asking if you can have another ham and cheese sandwich." "You know what I mean. Out there. Anything." There was a short pause as we both stopped to listen. I leaned my head against the window, letting my breath rest on the glass. I was shivering. Why was I shivering? We sat there a full minute, letting the air out of the conversation. Looking out, I could imagine all kinds of things just outside of reach. Maybe something resembling a person, and maybe something else. Something being trailed by tendrils and screaming in an alien lung. Once everything else goes quiet, your mind fills in the blanks. "I think there's something there," I whispered. "I really do." Once the fog cleared, I stepped outside. I could see Mal and the kids coming down the street, but I took a moment to stop in the driveway. Looking down the road, I could see the tail end of the fog dissipating. As it did, I could have sworn that I heard something. Not as much heard as felt, but there was something. My heart was pounding through my chest and my fingers were growing numb. As I was overrun by a parade of eager children, most of my worries evaporated with immediate needs. As I ushered them inside, Mal stopped to check on me, her braid half undone and her face curled into a frown. "You sure that you're okay?" Turning to face her, I considered just nodding and being done with it. But Mal was genuinely asking. This wasn't a casual, "You good?" It was an open invitation. "What if there's really something out there?" I asked. "Not a boogeyman, not a Bigfoot. What do you do?" "I understand you're worried, but..." "No, Mal, listen," I said. "Just play along. What if there's something out there? What do you do?" She looked down, tapping her foot, looking down the street and then back at me. She nodded. "First, I would need proof," she said. "Not a group chat. Actual proof." "All right," I agreed. "Let's get some proof." Mal and I decided that we would take it a bit more seriously. if only to make me feel a bit better about it. She had Ali bring home a camera from school. They had an older one they used for graduations and social media posts. I looked up a couple of tutorials on how to set up trail cameras. I wanted to see if I could get my hands on a thermal camera, but even renting those things was way out of our price range. When we got some things up and running, Mal had a camera set up in her yard facing the woods. Chris managed to borrow a couple of trail cameras from some of his newfound pool buddies. It took some time to set it up, but we managed to get a little makeshift surveillance system going. Next time that fog rolled in, if there was something in it, we would catch it. I could tell that Mal's heart really wasn't in it, but she was a good sport about it. She didn't complain or question it. If anything, she was concerned, but that's about as far as she would go. It's strange how easily our roles had shifted. Now she was the grounded one, asking me to keep my head out of the clouds. Hadn't this been her thing not that long ago? Wasn't she the one who had pulled me into it to begin with? For 2 full months we got nothing, absolutely nothing, and diddly squat. 2 months of everyday life like nothing was happening, like nothing was scratching at the back of my mind, demanding that I consider the worst case scenario. Like there wasn't an outline of a threat, be it man or otherwise. That's what the fog watch was considering. A man, some kind of murderer or kidnapper. They had moved away from the idea of the mysterious cryptid fogman and moved to pointing fingers at strange loners who lived on the outskirts of town. It didn't matter that they had no motive and plenty of alibis. These people were hard-coded to grasp at straws, and their grip was like a vice. I didn't bite and neither did Mal, and apparently neither did our cameras. Mal's kids came over for a sleepover one night. Chris was trying to one-up Ali by putting on a Goosebumps movie night, complete with horror-themed snacks and games. I helped out here and there, but it was clear that this was his thing. He wasn't about to let some pretentious wannabe principal upstage the working man. One of Mal's kids had forgotten their glasses, so I decided to be kind enough to go get them while they settled on what episode to start with. I wrapped myself in a coat and put on my loafers, heading down the street. The further that I got from my house, the more I felt something. Looking down at my fingers, I could see the fingertips turning white. I was shaking a little. My teeth chattered. And by the time that I got to Mal's place, my heart was already racing. I could feel it. And when she finally opened the door, I rushed inside and closed the door behind me. "It's here," I said. "It's here right now, it's here." "Slow down," she said, grabbing me by the shoulders. "What are you?" She turned around, looking out into the yard. "Oh." It was so sudden. The fog rolled in from nowhere. It was already covering the yard, but it was only a matter of time before it would cover the entire street. The wind had been blowing just a moment ago, making the old branches crackle and creak. But now it was quiet, still. "Check the camera," I said, "just in case." "Yeah," she said, nodding. "I'll do that." As she wandered off, her husband came wandering in from the other room. He gave me a casual wave and stopped to look out the window. "Scary," he admitted. "What's up?" "Glasses," I said. "Your kid, yeah, glasses." "Right," Ollie nodded. "He's still getting used to them. You want me to get them?" "Yeah, just give me a minute." "I can run over with them, no problem." I shook my head, but he was already up and about. Mal came back, showing me a screen that she had set up for remote viewing. Meanwhile, Ollie was already halfway out the door. I asked him to wait, but he insisted that it wasn't a problem. Meanwhile, Mal was trying to show me the screen. There was nothing on it, but I suspect that's what she wanted me to see. Assurance. "We're good," she said, giving me a pat on the shoulder. "You see, nothing." Ali waved at us as he held up the glasses. "Back in a jiffy." I didn't know where to look, but I could tell that I didn't like any of this. Part of me wanted to nod and go on with my evening, but another part of me wanted to scream and drag him back in the house. Mel's assuring hand on my shoulder made me sit down at her kitchen island for a moment as she invited me to have a drink. But the moment that she got the bottle, she stopped. The corkscrew clinked against the counter as she looked up at me, her eyes wide. "What is that?" she asked. Do you feel that?" "Yeah, I do." We got up and walked up to the front door. We both looked out, watching Ali walk down the street with a pair of children's glasses in hand. It didn't take long for the fog to completely swallow him. Seconds later, we hear it. This awful, shrill, death-shrieking scream, like something gargling a word until it becomes a noise. Mal was out the door in a flash with me trailing behind by a breath. She didn't even bother to put shoes on. She was screaming for Ali, flailing with her hands forward, hoping to find the white picket fence lining the front of her house. If she could grab a hold of that, she could find her way around no matter how thick the fog was. There it was, the scream again, closer now. A broken voice trying to recall a baby's babble. I was right behind Mal, making sure not to let her fluttering caftan out of sight. With every step into the fog, I could feel my fingers growing numb, and something in my chest aching. My lungs were growing cold, making my breath join the white of the fog. Something moved up ahead. From a distance, it looked like a person, but when I got a little closer, you could tell that something was wrong. All around the edges of their silhouette, there was this bubbling, roiling motion. Bubbles growing and popping, letting out puffs of white smoke, like the shape of a boiling man. The body making itself move while standing still. Skin hung from the sides like torn wallpaper dangling in the open air. It wasn't just a scream, it was a death rattle. It wasn't just random noise, it was a cry. The most basic cry that I would recognize anywhere at any time. Mama. A pair of children's glasses clattered to the ground as the shape in front of us dissolved piece by piece. I was trying to pull Mal off the ground when I realized that I wasn't breathing. I could feel my heart in my throat, but I couldn't move my hands. There were no fogmen. There was no monster. It was the fog itself, and there was something in us. Mal's hair was moving on its own, and I could see something rolling on her skin. It was happening to me too. The aching cold in my chest reached all the way to my heart, and I could feel this intense fear like I was being stared down by a predator, like something was hunting me, seconds away from biting down and severing my organs from one another. Something in me was tightening, getting ready to snap like a rubber band. I grabbed Mal by the arms and pulled her back away from the street, away from whatever to wherever. I didn't care what we did or where we went. I just cared that we didn't stay put. My vision was blurry and I had trouble closing my eyes. Something on my left arm stretched the skin out like a gas bubble. Mal had screamed out the air in her lungs and she was barely awake. Looking around, I could only see the white of the fog. I could be 10 feet from a door or 100 feet into the middle of nowhere. I couldn't tell. I dragged her until I had snagged my feet on a rock. I tipped over, collapsing to the ground with her right next to me. I couldn't get my legs to move. I wasn't going anywhere. I was going to stay right there in the middle of someone's lawn. I was going to die from something that I didn't understand. Something that was dissolving me. In that moment, I saw smoke and bubbles rise from Mal's hair and scalp. I heard a noise escape me too, a noise that I could now understand. In that moment of fear, in that one moment where you stare mortality in the eye and it stares back, you're just begging for that one thing. You let your chattering teeth form the words for you. Mama, Mama, help. It doesn't sound like a human noise. It's the sound you make as your lungs boil and your throat closes. I remember hearing a door open, an old man yelling for someone, an old woman making a panicked phone call, something grabbing a hold of me as I'm dragged into the warmth of a home. Mal is next, but she's unconscious. I don't know if she's breathing. Someone's trying to warm us, covering us in blankets and hot water. My mouth is moving on its own, my teeth chattering. Even then, I can hear the words rolling out of me like it's the most natural thing in the world. Mama, Mama. By the time the paramedics arrive, I'm catatonic. Someone is performing chest compressions on Mal. I see her lips move just like mine. We're saying the same thing. I fall in and out of consciousness as strange faces pass me by. Worried faces, some apologetic and concerned and others disgusted. I'm rolled down a corridor and catch a glimpse of myself in a shiny plastic cover. My arm is a strange color. My one eye won't close. It looks dark. There are needles and bags and lights. Something stings my retina and then grows distant. You're gonna be okay, someone says. There's a hand on my head. And for a moment I believe them, I really do. Enough to let go and rest. The damage was mostly concentrated on my arm. They called it an extreme reaction. You know how some people can choke from just the smell of a peanut? What happened to me medically was something similar. It also burst a blood vessel in my eye, but it was nowhere near as painful as the many stitches that I had to get to keep my arm from breaking apart. Mal made it through the night, but it was touch and go for a while. They had to shave her head. The worst had settled in her scalp and the back of her neck. She would have to wear a neck brace to make sure that the stitches didn't pop, and they were in a really bad spot. She never looked the same without her braid. After the doctors ran their tests and explained what had happened, they seemed just as clueless as me. Not only was this something that they had never seen before, it was something that they couldn't explain. Part of it was a kind of allergic reaction, and causing a massive burst of histamines that resulted in both anaphylaxis and painful hives. But there was something else, something akin to a bacterial infection. The working theory was that a colony of bacteria was traveling through the water droplets of the fog, causing massive allergic reactions in those sensitive to it. But that didn't explain what we had seen. Allergies don't dissolve somebody into thin air, and no matter the explanation, no one could tell what really happened to Ali. He was deemed a missing person, not dead or dissolved, missing. There was no world where they would accept somebody disappearing into nothing. Chris and I moved north as soon as I got out of the hospital. Mal moved west to be with her family. She couldn't afford to be a stay-at-home mom anymore, and it could take a long time before Ali was presumed dead. There would be no insurance payout until long after the damage was already done. We kept in touch for a while, but I couldn't bear to look at the fog watch anymore. I kept getting panic attacks whenever there was a notification, and Chris made the executive decision to pull me from my social media altogether. And honestly, it was the right call. It's been some time now since that night when Ali disappeared, and I don't know what frightens me more. That there are forces at work that can turn a person into nothing, or how stupid I was to be fascinated by it to begin with. There's a reason that we stay inside when the wind blows and the rain comes down. Even animals take shelter. So why are we the only ones to go looking in places that we shouldn't? But I think what frightens me the most is that gnawing feeling that remains. That at the end of my line, when that certain darkness comes to collect its toll, I know what I'll say. I've said it before. It may have been the first thing I said, and it may be my last. What's more natural than asking for help? Mama. Mama, help.
Mama.